Hey, hey, everybody. I wanted to talk to you. I think it's more for me than probably for everyone else, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about grief. Um, so I guess I need to give you a little bit of backstory. Um, so on March 30th, 31st, I'm sorry. Yeah, March 31st. Um, my grandmother passed away. Now, my grandmother was more or less like a mother to me. I mean, she raised me. She cared for me. She really fought for me many times, and I think gave me a better life than I could have ever had. Um, Anywhere else. She was a very um, stern, kind of religious woman, and sometimes I think she took it a little overboard, but it really instilled a good work ethic in me and a good sense of morality, a sense of right and wrong. So, growing up, that was my life. I mean, it was just my grandmother and I, and my mom and my sisters. They lived next door, but I don't know. It was just me and I called her Granny. She because she reminded me of Granny Clampett off the Beverly Hillbillies. Very kind of just high strung and terrible temper at times. But anyway, so the story on that, she was 85 years old. About a year before she suffered a fall, fractured her spine, and was never really truly the same since. I don't know what, Oh, and she also got listeria poisoning somehow from, I think, an ice cream bar or something. But, after that, after those two things happening kind of right around the same time, she was never really the same after that. As time went on, over the course of that year, well, I should say at the beginning of 2018, so it was more like 2 years. Um, Her mind was not super good. She became more and more confused, as time would go on, and she's like, she got to a point where she was, forgetting who people were, and we thought, oh, she's getting Alzheimer's, but there's not really a super. I don't think there's any real history of Alzheimer's in our family, so it was a little odd. And but then in October of last year, she came to stay with me here. Um, and she was awfully confused. She didn't really know who I was. She didn't really know where she was. She thought she was in the hospital. Um, and she was hoping she would get out. I remember her telling me that. And but she said, I've got a spot here where I had surgery and it's hurting. She hadn't had surgery, obviously. So, I kind of looked at it and there was a raised bump on her shoulder, her shoulder. Actually think it was on this side, her right shoulder over here. And I thought it was odd, but I just didn't think to say anything to anybody about it. And well, as time went on over the next course of the next month or so, it just kept getting bigger. And then eventually someone did notice, and they, told the family doctor about it. And then they, eventually they did take her to the emergency room because it got painful and it was hurting her so much. She went to the emergency room and they tried to drain it, and they kept her in the hospital for a couple of days. She was in hospital up until Christmas Day. She got out on the morning of Christmas. And, you know, everybody kind of assumed it was just some kind of boil or something, really weird. And, but then finally we took her to her daughter, I should say, took her to a different hospital here in Columbus, a much better hospital. And she, after they started looking at it, they realized that it was not just a boil. She actually had tuberculosis. And it wasn't in her lungs. It was just in this like open seeping wound on her shoulder. She was contagious. And of course we'd all been around her, and that was, scary in itself. And, and they kept her in there for pretty much all the month of January, and most of the month of January. And eventually she started doing a little better. They gave her some special tuberculosis type antibiotics once they confirmed it, and she started getting a little better, and so they sent her home. Well, as time went on, she started getting worse again. She didn't want to eat. She just was not super responsive, and so she ended up back in there for another week or so. And then they let her go home again, and they decided to give her a home health care, gave her a hospital bed, that sort of thing. And she was quite weak and quite unwell. I think she was something like 80 pounds. I mean, she was a very small woman to begin with. She only weighed about 104, but still, someone even small going down to 80 pounds is quite a jump. So, and then eventually they just, it was decided that, considering her mind was not good, and her, now I kind of wonder, was the tuberculosis in her brain? Was it causing the dementia? How long did she have this? I don't know enough about tuberculosis to truly be able to say one way or another, but it's a question I'm always going to ask. Was it the tuberculosis that was causing her memory issues? Because she was extremely sharp up until, she started getting sick. And anyway, so provided home health care, and then, her doctor suggested that we give her hospice palliative care, which is not, like regular hospice where someone's actively dying, but rather someone who is probably going to die, but it's more of a long-term kind of care. It's more like end-of-life care, but not like directly at the end of life care. And she had a nurse and a lot of people who were supporting her and doing their best to make her comfortable, and they were giving her morphine and things. But as time went on, once after that second hospital visit, she really would not eat at all. She just, like, you tried to get her to eat and she just refused. And I don't know. I mean, she just wouldn't eat. And so, as time went on March 30th, I would call her every morning, in the morning, and then usually in the evening, or vice versa. Sometimes I'd only call once a day, but usually twice a day. And, time went on, and we got to about March 30th, and then I called her that day, and she just didn't sound good. Like, she was not... I tried to talk to her, and she really couldn't understand what I was saying. And she had some hearing problems anyway, so, I thought maybe it was partly that, but she definitely was going downhill, and I could tell it. And then the next morning, I got a text message. It was a Tuesday morning, March 31st. I got a text message from her daughter, it was my great-grandmother that raised me, and my grandmother, her daughter, sent me a message saying that, she thought she might be dying. Apparently she had fallen through the night and thrown up in the, that kind of stuff, end of life type stuff that happens. I responded back, call her nurse and, have him come and look and see what needs to happen. Because, we are even now, we're still, but especially at that time, the state was shut down. We were in the middle of the coronavirus, shut down. And so, I wasn't real sure what to do. Forgive me for a moment. I've got to put a mute on my computer. There we go. And so, it wasn't a few minutes later that my sister called me and said, I think she's gone. They'd noticed at some point that she had stopped breathing. And her heart had stopped. There was no pulse. She was gone. I think up until that moment, I had the worst anxiety about her dying. Like, I could feel it just bubbling up in my chest, and just a real fear. And sometimes I would go and I'd just sit at the piano and I'd play. I play piano when I get stressed. And I would just sit there and I'd just play and I'd play and I'd play, just trying to make it go away so I could forget about it. There was so much fear of her dying, and I don't know why, because honestly, her mind was not all there for the last couple of years. She just wasn't herself. She couldn't, if something was wrong, she couldn't have helped me, but it was still that, she was still so special and so important to me. And, So I had so much fear up until the point she actually died. But once that happened, most of the anxiety went away. And for that day, I just kind of came and sat in my office. It's where I kind of retreat to when I don't feel good or I feel depressed. And I just, I work out of here. I kind of live my life out here in my office. And it's just where I go, I think, to feel safe. And there's a recliner over here beside me, a small one. And I just kind of sat there for a few hours and just kind of, I guess I just needed to let myself feel sad, feel the shock, feel the emotions. Um, because it was an expected death, but it came at a time that was not expected. Um, I think that, that it was a tough time anyway. Um, then came the funeral. Of course, we're in the middle of the coronavirus shutdown, and so we could not have a traditional funeral. It was a graveside service, and it was limited to 10 people. I think we actually may have had 11 there, but whatever, we kept our distance anyway. Um, the family members had direct family members. The only people who were there had to serve as pallbearers because we didn't have anybody else. And we did have an open casket for a short period, right immediately before the funeral, and and then there was some other confusion with the minister. There was not. We'd asked someone to come, but apparently the word or some wires got crossed or something, and he just didn't. He didn't come. So we kind of had to do that ourselves. My sister read the obituary. I sang a few songs. I played the keyboard and sang a couple songs, and that was about it. And it felt like, we did the best we could, but at the same time, it felt like we did such an injustice, to an entire 85-year life. We basically condensed a summary down into 10 minutes because we didn't know what to do. And then of course when we got out to get back in the car there at the cemetery, we were exchanging toilet paper because there was a toilet paper shortage. But we did the best we could, and that part it sucks, but it is what it is, and we couldn't do anything about it. And it's been a couple. Let's see, April, May, June, and it's now July, so about almost 4 months that she's been gone. And it's with everything going on in the world, for me at least, it's taken a while for the grief to start to set in, and really only at the beginning of this month, just before the 4th of July, did I start really feeling any kind of grief. I just didn't think about it. I didn't want to think about it. And my work was extremely busy. I just, there's the coronavirus stuff. There's all kinds of stuff going on in the world, and I just didn't want to deal with it. And so I think I kind of put off the grief until it finally just caught up with me. And I'm not the type of person who's going to talk to people, not my family, or certainly not my family, but friends or anyone like that, really, about it. I've got one or maybe two friends that I can somewhat talk to about this kind of thing with. And so that's why I think I'm on this video, is because I need to talk about it. And because it's bothering me, and I'm just not a super social person to begin with, and so I guess I'll talk to you. So yeah, I think toward the beginning of July, I just started thinking about things. Maybe why wasn't I around as she was getting sicker and sicker? I was working a lot. I was doing that kind of thing. It wasn't really the most possible for me to be there. I couldn't, I can't drive because I have POTS, and it's an hour away, almost an hour and a half, and it's just not easy for me to get there. But I still have those regrets that I didn't have a more of a role in her care. I don't know that it would have changed a thing. Um, Maybe I could have gotten her to eat a little bit, but in the end, I think she would probably have died eventually anyway. I mean, within a month of that, maybe another week or two. I don't. I think that my grandmother, her daughter, did everything she possibly could that she knew to do, and she gave her. She really cares. She loved her mother, of course, and I don't. She did everything right. That, and the rest of my family, my mother, my sisters, they were all, doing everything they could for her. And then, this coronavirus stuff hit. We were half afraid to put her in the hospital because, you couldn't go visit somebody. So, and if there was nobody there, the thing is, with hospital care, the nurses are wonderful, but they're overworked. And sometimes that means that someone who has maybe Alzheimer's might miss out on a meal or something if they don't remember to tell someone about that or something, and considering she wasn't already eating, what maybe wasn't the best idea to put her in the hospital. And we actively kind of knew she was dying at that point. And so, I think about that sort of thing. And then you think back to when you were younger, in your teens and your 20s, and you think about things that happened and things you did to make her life miserable, and that sort of stuff kind of comes back. You think about the happy memories, and and then you also start thinking about life and how fragile it is, how easy it is to just it's there 1 minute and then it's just gone. I heard I grew up going to church, and I heard a minister say, you're one heartbeat away from meeting your maker. And that's true. That's you can be here 1 minute and gone the next, not even be expecting it to happen. And that's scary. That's, when you're younger, you don't really think about your own mortality, or, how you don't really think about how you're going to die someday. But it's something I've had to think about a whole lot over the last couple of years, ever since I got POTS, I think. And, it's scary, but it's not. I mean, it is what it is. For me personally, I have a faith, my religious beliefs that kind of help me with that. But whatever your beliefs are, it's very hard to come to that thought that things are going to end someday, and whether you believe there's some afterlife or not, or whatever you believe, that's kind of irrelevant to what I'm trying to say here. But it's hard to think about. So I guess that's been on my mind, and I've been feeling just really depressed. And I thought at first it was just because I was stuck inside with the coronavirus stuff, but then I realized, well, I'm stuck inside all the time anyway. The world's in chaos right now, and not just here in the U.S., but all over the world. But it seems like the U.S. it's been a lot more chaotic than in the past, any time in my lifetime for sure, other than maybe September 11th. But it's just crazy, everything that's happening. And current events for another day, but it's a crazy time. And so I apologize. All the messages seem to be coming through, but I guess like I said in the beginning, the reason I'm making this video is just because I need to talk about it, and need to put it somewhere where I know other people will see it, because I feel sad. Maybe not right in this moment do I feel sad. If I were feeling as depressed as I have over the last few few weeks, I probably wouldn't be making this video right now. I'd just be kind of on my own, just leaving myself alone, to do my own thing. But for right now, I can talk about it, and so that's what I'm doing. And maybe somebody else out there is kind of feeling what I'm feeling with grief. Maybe you've lost someone, a friend, a parent, a grandparent, whatever. And I guess I'd just like to hear from you. Yeah. So I guess that's all I have to say. So until next time, bye-bye.
All right, so our fried chicken is finished. I just pulled it out of the deep fryer a few minutes ago. Well, the second batch, I should say. And I'm about ready to give it a try. But before I do, I just wanted to mention, I forgot in the last part of the video, that you need to leave it in the deep fryer at 375 for about 15 minutes. If you want to be really safe, you could use a meat thermometer, and you want to reach an internal temperature of 175. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. But all right, let's try a piece. Oh. The skin has a wonderfully strong flavor. You can taste the garlic and the onion powder so much. Not overpowering, just enough. Excellent. All right, that's it for this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or anything at all, just leave it down at the bottom. And until next time, enjoy. Goodbye.